and then I'm gonna open up to y'all, my panelists, because y'all are fucking great. Yeah, sure, Gary. Just shove your mouth full of food, why don't you? As I'm talking.
No, I'm examining this.
Examining your
Sarah.
Faithful. Oh my god, sup, Teds? How you doing? Is this on? Is this on? It's very quiet. I don't want to put it down. This is a lot of work. Cute. We're putting shit down. Awesome. Yes, thank you two for sitting together. I know it's very awesome. Just like, these are our dressers. They worked really hard during our show, so I appreciate it. Also, been dealing with my bullshit backstage. Like, I called you a Negro a whole bunch. I said some backward shit to you a couple times, too. So, I think. Did I call you hot at one point? I think I did. I guess I was gonna call you. No? Okay, well, came out now. Anyway. Love this. So, is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good? We're rolling? Awesome. Jazz hands. So, welcome to Drag is a political protest. Drag's a protest. My apologies. Ooh, panel. What? Stop talking. Make me come down there. Awesome.
No, Miss Marilyn.
No, Miss Marilyn. Today I'm joined by some honestly amazing advocates and performers, both from New York as well as Lividity. You're from, where are you originally from? Boston. Originally from Boston, so you're Maxwell at heart? Yeah. Love of love. And you're attending UMass Amherst. Love of love. Also Forrest Fleur, who is, you're a Massachusetts native?
Northern New York.
Northern New York, specifically?
Saratoga/Adirondacks.
I'm gonna pretend like I know this. I'm assuming it's primarily rural.
Yeah.
Yes, just look. Derrière, you're joining us from
The Amish country of Pennsylvania. I'm not kidding. Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Where?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, that is.
It's near Hershey Park.
Oh, I love Hershey. Definitely been there. Actually, Mitch, you are living in New York, but you're originally from?
I was born in the state of Indiana. I'm from Kansas City.
Jesus. So,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Where you were raised is primarily rural or more suburban?
There was 83 kids in my graduating class and no stoplight in town.
Jesus. So that answers my question. Just hands. So it seems like we're all pretty rural. I can't say the fucking word. Rurally raised. That's a word.
We're out of college. Someone can help.
Repeat aloud? Say it again.
I said we're out of college. I'm sure someone can help.
Okay, thank you so much. I love that for us.
That's all I get.
So the issue with that, and this is why, the reason why I asked is the question that you wrote is that gender non-conforming dress is inherently political. And because we're all raised in areas that are quite rural, getting to dress quite gender non-conforming would not be accepted where we are from. So do you have any stories about what it's like working in drag or performing in drag in spaces where it wouldn't be the norm and or accepted, either negative or positive, and how that outlook has changed you as an advocate and or a performer? Anybody?
Alright, I'm happy to start. So,
Use the microphone.
okay, alright. So in regards to being into drag, so I do a plethora of styles of drag. So I do queen drag, I do king drag, I do some like little things, things like that. So it's really interesting to me that in New York City, even a place that's so progressive and so queer forward and so there's such an amount of exposure. It's I wouldn't say not as bad, but I would say New York is definitely a safer place for queer people. I think it's interesting even now, like in my existence in New York, I think it's very funny that depending on the style of drag I'm going out in, my reaction is different. So as like an AFAB person, if I go out in queen drag or even like similar to like a makeup like this where I don't have a mustache, even though I've got like masculine contouring, I get an entirely different reaction when I go out like in high femme drag. It's, oh wow, you look so beautiful, and it's like the creeps on the street are a little different versus if I go out in masculine drag, and I think that has something to say about how we view femininity. Yeah, basically. So I think it's very interesting comparison to, like, I get up some days and I'm in drag at 10 in the morning, walking around the streets of New York, and I don't think about it until I'm actively conscious of, oh, my family lives in Tennessee, so this would be illegal. And there was a time when this was illegal for them to just like go, I couldn't just like go to work, which is honestly terrifying. What's your experience?
I'm a childcare worker.
Oh my God, same.
Yeah, so,
What age group?
3 to 8.
Okay,
Yeah,
same.
sort of like a good, like, range, but,
Middle class, upper class? And that's there's a reason why.
the kids?
Yeah.
I guess middle class. I work in, like, Westfield, Springfield area.
Yes. Okay.
But, at least with that kind of career path, with the dialogue that's been going on in America lately, I found that this job, the thing that makes my rent, the thing that puts like food on the table, is quite controversial with a lot of parents. And I've had a few situations where I've had to sit down and explain that, you know, drag is, it's not just like fun, it's a necessity for me, it's a means of survival. And I've always found it really disturbing that I've had to sit down in a room with my boss and basically explain the way I feed myself to people.
It's like you have to break it to them, like, why am I breaking my career to you?
Yeah, it's, you know, everything I do is public drag-wise, but it feels like such an invasion of my privacy when I have a parent sitting across from me and they pull up a picture of me from a few years ago or a few weeks ago performing, and I have to justify what I'm doing, and I feel like,
What is the dialogue pertaining to that? Like, how does that conversation come up? Because it's been quite the opposite for me, so I'm very intrigued to hear from this side of the conversation.
luckily my employer is incredible, and they made it very clear that whatever I do outside of work hours, as long as it's safe, they don't care. It was more so her not understanding why I was doing it. So when I explained it in terms of money and in terms of necessity, she kind of got it, but still wasn't too happy about it, and I ended up not being able to work with that specific child because she requested that I was not going to be his one-on-one anymore, which is very upsetting, but I've gotten very used to that kind of conversation with people now. I'm not really scared to have it anymore. It's disappointing that that's the reality of the field that I'm in, but that's just kind of one space where it's like I've dedicated a lot of time and effort and, you know, 4 years of my degree into childcare, and now my professionalism and experience is being called into question because I need to survive. So, yeah.
I can speak to also working with kids in summer camp and outdoor education, farm education environments, and yeah, it's a scary time to be working both with kids and in drag, and I try to keep those things separate just for my own safety, but like, at the same time, that's not going to come at the cost of my own expression. I'm going to tell the kids I'm working with what pronouns I use. I'm going to wear a cute little dress if that's what I feel like wearing that day, not because it's drag, because that's how I express myself. And I find it really powerful to like be given the opportunity to be like a kid's first exposure to what gender expression and what self-expression can look like, and to blow that open a little bit. Yeah, I think of like some of my camp counselors were the first queer people that I met and had as role models, and that's something that's really special to me. But and it's something that I definitely don't take lightly. Yeah.
You just said that, and that's actually hysterical, because my first exposure to anybody queer related is sitting in this room. Lorelai, I met 2009, which is absolutely batshit fucking wild. I can tell this story now because like I'm older, but I forged my parents' signature to go on this fucking field trip. At the time it was middle school, and the Gay Straight Alliance, my parents didn't know I signed up for it, because I was like, I just want to try something new and just see what it's like in this environment with this like different group of people that I possibly identified with. And I was feeling very out of place. I thought there was a possibility, there was something in me that connected and felt very pulled towards this community of people, but I didn't get it. And your energy, just who you were as a person, and you were just so strong, and just that authentically be yourself and unapologetically be yourself. Those two things, as a trans, it stuck with me. And again, at the time, I still didn't get it. I left there completely confused, completely baffled, but unapologetically and authentically be yourself are the two things that I took away. And years later, mind you, when I went there, I said I was straight as fuck, which we all know. Hi, total flaming homosexual, or non-binary faggot. But now, to see, to sit and to get to stand here and authentically say I'm, a proud queer advocate, having done this work, and now as a social worker, working with children and getting to educate them and doing the work that you did, it's such a full circle moment. And again, I'm extremely grateful for you being my first, to then get to say thank you. This would never fucking happen. So, I love you. Say thank you.
Worthwhile. This is what makes all of the shit that you go through that you have to take as a visible queer person worthwhile. This right here.
Period.
Can I ask, I know we're going to open it up to the general public, but I guess from your perspective as a trans woman, what's the biggest hurdle you've had in Massachusetts in particularly? I know, loaded, very loaded. Living authentically and unapologetically as a proud trans icon and leader.
Oh.
Two very specific things.
Yeah. I mean, I was a punk growing up, so I don't have a lot of common sense about my own self-preservation.
Being trans is the most punk thing you can do.
Yes, fuck yeah, punk rock. But the hardest thing is watching other people be attacked. I cannot tolerate a bully, and I will not tolerate a bully. I was teased real badly in school. And same height as Abraham Lincoln. I am going to stand between a bully and people who are marginalized, people who already have a hard time, people who are young deserve to get to be young. So I have hard times. I have hard times with the least expected places and people, but it's worth it. It's worth it to do. I mean, I have 2 Southern Poverty Law Center registered hate groups that hate me personally, and I'm very proud to represent these.
Do you have any words of wisdom or tools that you could leave, that you could give us when it comes to connecting with young queer people, especially having been a young queer person myself when I met you?
Yeah, I'm going to take my mask off for a second. Be authentic. That is what worked best for me. I don't really know how to be anyone but myself, which is terrible to say because I'm an actor too. So I literally trained how to be other people than myself for years. But I think that young people respond to authenticity. Young people can tell when you're lying or hiding something. And the whole world is new. My favorite thing that happens to me is when some little kid will come running up to me in the street and say, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I'll shorthand it and I'll say, "I used to be a boy and now I'm a girl." And I can see them list of things that they don't know about the world yet. And like, just move on to the next thing. Meanwhile, their parents are twitching in the background. Like that. Be authentic. Be yourself. That's the best example that young folks can have, and play it. Like, I do this thing that makes adults really nervous when I play with youth, is I will sort of intentionally swear a little. Like, I'll drop a couple of F-bombs and like knock my own self down a little, so that I'm less intimidating, so that I seem like less of an authority figure. So that's what I would recommend. Like, and know that being out in the world, being visible, even if you go through the world and you don't talk to anyone, and like you go home and you're like, I'm so depressed, it's so hard. People see you. People see you, and it makes a difference. And that, especially kids, like young folks see you. I cannot tell you, it meant so much to me for you to come talk to me. And it's a thing that happens semi-regularly, is some like young queer or trans person, and sometimes older queer and trans people will stop me in the street and tell me that just seeing me being made them feel okay to come out. So yeah, that's what
It's a superpower. I swear to God, like being like visibly queer is a superpower.
Kids know best.
That's kids know fucking
Kids know best, but that's what's so perplexing. I feel like we are a great model as queer people of how to be authentically yourself. And as a child, I always looked at them and immediately knew this person is like in charge of who they are. Thank you. And it's just so odd that they would want, because the bigger picture that we're all kind of thinking about is like the drag bands and the things that make us like. They kind of conflate us all as one overarching enemy that they want to beat, but the very perplexing thing to me is just that I feel like what the kids need most is the exact opposite of that fight they're fighting for. They don't want authenticity. They want to kind of just mold these kids into whatever they want them to be, and it's just like the opposite of authentic. It's very like, to us, it feels so very harmful to watch them spew a rhetoric that people can spread like wildfire that just like burns down the very foundations, you know, of what it means to be authentic. And I don't think there's I don't know, it's just like we teach the lessons to kids that parents will like hide from them, you know what I mean? I feel like we can all look back at something and be like, oh, I remember when I was a kid and I was right about this. And I feel like when as a child, I would see an older queer person or a drag queen when I got to go out in the city and see crazy stuff. I feel like that's when you really find out, like you're just like, okay, that's fun, I get that. Like you said, check it off. Like they just get it. You don't have to explain it to them. And everyone's really just angry because the kids get it and they can't fill their heads with lies soon enough.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to what you were sharing, about kind of like teaching a kid. I used to be a boy and now I'm a girl, and that felt really resonant with me because I had a particular moment with a camper where she came up to me so excited and was like, "You're just the coolest counselor because you're half boy and half girl." And that was like the biggest thing for them, and it was just a really magical discovery to kind of witness that I was really thankful for.
It's funny that we're talking about kids and the fact that we're drag queens and performers, because the biggest thing and the biggest lesson is that we as performers, we play. Like, we all got up on that stage today and we played with every person in the audience, and
We're professional dress-up players.
I call ourselves professional children. Like, I literally drag somebody around the room. Like, I don't think that's normal. But doing that day after day after day, yes, it brings us so much joy. And yes, the money is great sometimes, but sustainable, long term. It drains you. And yes, visibly being out there on the front lines, doing this day in, day out, while wonderful, while nourishing, and I use that, nourishing is like the best word, because it does, like, you know, you leave spaces that are queer, and people talk to you, you have stories like this, like conversations like Lorelai and I have, and you feel like a sense of accomplishment and pride, but day in, day out, like, how, like, for you, you've been doing this a little bit longer than I have, so, do you, like, how have you sustained yourself during, like, doing this for so long, or, God forbid, being on the front lines when trans legislation, anti-trans legislation was, you know, forefront, and you were being attacked daily, and not just on the news, in person. And I know West End and Western Mass was not kind to any visibly trans-identified person whatsoever. And I unfortunately was still here when that shit was going on. And I unfortunately, I was not brave enough to step in and advocate on behalf. Instead, I was like, I'm too uncomfortable to defend. Now I'm like, don't you dare say a fucking word. Now I fight it. Like everyone, you know, Derrière, Nixon's like, no, y'all say one bad thing, I'm ready to go to jail. Like that's my first thing. Like I want a mugshot. So at this point, like again, sustainable. Like how have you sustained yourself? What in terms of self-care? Like what have you been doing to keep yourself relatively sane, relatively together?
Sure. I mean, a thing that you might identify with as performers. I studied sketch comedy and improv for 20 years before I transitioned, and so like I rewired my brain to see the funny in almost everything.
Yeah.
So I try and see, like I just sort of automatically process things into what's funny about it, what's funny, what's ridiculous, what's terribly wrong about this situation, and that helps me survive. Is to sort of convert it into ridiculous stories I can tell people. Being kind to people. I know if I also like, I talk about being kind and people sort of like assume a sort of Pollyanna-ness. I use kindness as a fucking weapon. Like, you know, I come from a good Yankee background and I saw how they would wield like their weird kindness. And I've won arguments by being kind to the bigot, which, you know, they don't deserve my kindness, but it also makes them look like they're being an asshole to this very sweet woman.
Glitches their matrix.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd actually like to say something on sustainability, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was about to pass it down to you next.
So when it comes to sustainability, like when you ask the question, like, what do you do to kind of, you know, ignore the haze of it all? Well, I don't do drag full time. Drag, to me, when I think of what my drag is, you said it's, you have to do it, right? I, the same way, but more of, I have to do it because that's my art. And if I don't feel like myself. And when I don't have the outlet in which to be creative and make my mixes and sing and dance, then I feel like I lose part of my authenticity. And so what becomes sustainable is what I'm doing. And so even though you may have situations or circumstances where, like, you've got people outside of the bar, they are not having it, they are and things can be scary, and people are on your social medias making comments and stuff. It can be terrifying, like, don't get me wrong. But the moment I, like, get set on stage and I'm no longer Al, I'm Lestrange, it entirely switches over. That sustainability comes from within myself and with art. Like, that's really the only way I think I would be able to do it. Because I'm very grateful that drag is not my full-time job, because I like to ensure that it stays fun for me, and that's something that's important to me. But yeah, I think sustainability is a lot of that authenticity. I think so much of our drag speaks to our authenticity, and it's the authenticity that we weren't allowed to always expose or allowed to always have outwardly. So I think in terms of sustainability, us being our authentic self and doing our craft and doing our drag and doing our art is in itself, like, what keeps us going, at least speaking for myself.
Yeah, to speak on the sustainability part, a big reason I kind of do the style of drag that I do, is because I know when I look like the most insane motherfucker on the street, I'm not gonna get jumped. I know, if I know, like, I'm covered in blood head to toe, like, crawling around on the floor, I know that I'm more safe looking the way I do. And I've grappled with that a lot, because there's parts of me where it's like, oh my god, am I literally just painting myself like this because I know it's more of like a defense mechanism? Who knows? That's a whole mental gymnastics
Femininity is
thing.
what makes it dangerous though, because even what I was saying earlier with like, femininity is what makes it dangerous though, which is crazy, because the moment I step out in a mustache and mask drag, or even if I'm doing like a werewolf number or something, I get that look, and then the moment that I step in like a formal dress or something, then it's a different type of harassment that is like, it immediately turns into sexual harassment.
Yeah.
So.
That's funny, because, I mean, again, maybe it's the race card and the height card for me, but it's the exact opposite. I have more of a time, I'm more harassed as Marcel than I am as Marilyn. And I don't know if people are just fucking afraid of the sheer height of somebody who is 7'4" with heels and the hair. I think that's the height that we clocked it last time. So, like, most of the time when I'm in drag, nobody says a goddamn thing. Either they're too terrified to, or, like, I don't know what the fuck it is. But as Marcel, everybody has something to fucking say. But, like, I don't know what it is. I, like, as the feminine, like, nothing. So, fuck if I know. But I also know, like, out here, I also haven't had the chance to really dive into the possibility of there being a possible hate crime for, like, I don't want to manifest that, but also, like, it would be a very interesting social experiment to see how this style of drag is accepted in spaces where Massachusetts isn't as kind to those of us who do what we do.
I feel like it might be a sign of the public being a little more used to drag in the mainstream now too, if that makes sense. Because now people have seen it before, so instead of processing it for the first time and having to say something to this god or goddess that they're seeing, they've seen it before, and I feel like there's a lot of people that are on edge around any visibly queer person, whether for that I don't want to be offensive and ask a question, but they're curious, and yeah.
I think, actually, you know what,
I don't want to say it's exactly that.
It's
I'm just feeling like
50-50.
it's a sign of the times, because it's totally so
but
different
also,
sometimes.
I think it's the style of drag. I think that's the thing, is that, like, compared, Lividity and I are two very different styles of it. Like, true. So I think, again, if we were to walk into a space, you have what I would call generic drag, or like stereotypical New York drag, which is very commercialized, things that people are very used to and or accustomed to, versus Lividity style of drag, which is more Dragula, which is very
That's
niche.
Brooklyn. She got Brooklyn drag.
Which is what I've been saying all fucking
Yeah,
day.
but I more mean the
But,
people
like,
that see us and don't even analyze immediately. They just see the makeup, they see maybe hair and some sort of, they see something different.
yeah.
They see something different, and they just don't, I think, I don't know. I love to throw shit in the air and watch it spin.
I feel like the commercialization and the capitalism that's been attached
No,
to,
because-
it's a double-edged sword of drag becoming more exposure, because we want more exposure of drag, because we want, like, when we talk about ignorance, the only thing that changes that is exposure. So like, when you're walking in New York and you see drag queens all the time, obviously you're gonna have more exposure, your viewpoints is gonna be different, but it's definitely a double-edged sword with capitalism and it becoming more and more visible, because it pigeonholes, once again, it takes away our authenticity and pigeonholes, okay, well, this is what a drag queen is. Okay, I've never heard of a drag king, because it's not a RuPaul's Drag Race, so that doesn't exist. You know, I've never, like, and it's even so much more than just like drag queens versus drag kings, like, drag, there's so many different styles of weird drag that I didn't even, like, really know it. I'm like, drag is drag, like, coming to New York City, different boroughs have such a different style, like, you have bars where it's only mixes, you have bars where they only do theater, you got spaces where they, like, drag things are, like, taking over, and there's people that do drag as inanimate objects, like, there's just so many
Oh my god.
like,
Okay.
David Puck.
David Puck.
David
Oh my god. Take a second, look him up on Instagram. David Puck is one of the campiest fucking, I wish I could pull him up on screen.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The way,
But don't don't lose your authenticity just
No.
because you're trying to fit into the mold for the sake of the money, because we're supposed to fit into
I
this
love that you're
box
all looking
now.
up David Puck right now.
And I feel like it's a similar vein, like they want to obfuscate us and the view of us from children perhaps, because they also want to tell them what to think before they can really understand it for themselves, because it is truly not as dangerous.
But also, not to use David as an example, but put David in a room with children versus put us in a room with children. Like those are two very different conversations that are going to be had, and then switch it. Put parents in a room with David and put parents in a room with us. Like
I would run one hell of fucking PTO.
it's PTA actually, but PTO is paid time off.
She's never had it. She said, what? Well, I had to explain to you what OJI was the other day.
Orange juice.
Try to give her some OJ on
Investigation. Investigation.
Do you want to do that? That's English. What's on the mind?
Yeah, I just think that we're getting at a lot of different, like various definitions of what sustainability means and what it looks like. My drag kind of speaks to like an environmental sustainability. There is also like this element of like community sustainability that I think that drag plays a really major role in for queer folks. And like you saw that in the dining comments, like our show, our art is something that brought people together, and that's really special. And that's a really important piece of what drag and queer expression means in terms of sustainability. And then I also really, really appreciate and want to echo what Mix is bringing to the table about like the physiological sustainability of one's creative practice, and also like the importance of making that what it needs to be to feel sustainable practice for you, right? And yeah, that speaks to a capitalistic element of sustainability as well, and yeah, lots of different threads.
So I was just gonna say, I feel like when you're talking about that with sustainability and also authenticity, a lot of people might. I feel like I always like when I'm talking about this with like my friends and stuff too. When we have our like deep night conversations, we always forget to talk about like what it means to be authentic, because you can say be authentic, but there's a lot of nuance and a lot of examples to what that can really mean. That can mean like, oh, I'm waking up this morning, I want some bacon. Like literally just eat what you want. Or when it comes to art, yes, it's doing what you want. It's doing what is going to be sustainable for you. Not purely even in a financial sense. I just think it's important to remember that drag comes in all shapes and sizes.
Exhibit A and exhibit
All right.
Love is love.
All right.
Love is love.
No, it's fine. Actually, I do want to touch on the community part real quick, because yes,
Community.
love drag, and I love how drag can form very specific communities of support. And being inherently queer can create certain pockets of community that are safe. I'm picking my words very carefully. I'm trying to be as PC as possible, but in the same breath, I just want to be like, it's not. Like, this is mainly speaking to New York. Yes, drag is great. We don't create safe spaces. Like I'm being very blunt here. Like as much, yes, Hampshire has been great, and for certain spaces, drag can create very safe, very supportive environments, and that community can be so uplifting and so healthy. However, on the flip side of that, it can also be very, very toxic and can cause rifts that break apart community. And I would realize, I know this probably isn't, it's partially political too, because I think we also have to then delve into the race portion of it, and I know, and I'm definitely going to touch on that, the race, and on top of that, the income level, because those two things really definitely play into like how drag is very political. I'm going to pass off to Mix first. I know that you're like itching. I see you're like nodding a lot.
I was just agreeing with you.
Well, as a New York performer, do you want to talk about how drag separates versus yeah, you know exactly where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. Thank you. As a drag king working at a certain, yeah, that's why, there we go. Now you know what I'm talking
Well,
about.
I knew what you were talking about.
There we go. Go
With the side
ahead.
video.
Oh, yeah, I don't get this
I
part
think
of
that's
video.
part of the problem with it becoming, when we talked about exposure, it's part of the problem with becoming more exposure and more people are familiar with drag and people in New York are more familiar with booking drag and so they have an idea of, it's become money for them, you know, it's a way for them to make money off of us. I hate to say that, and hate to be that blunt, but it's very much that. And so everyone has their little checkbox of, oh, well, we have one of these performers, we have one of these performers. I am what they call the token drag king, which means I pretty much always am the only drag king and or alternative drag in most of the lineups. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love drag queens. I think all drag is valid. I do think that there's a lot of unappreciated art and a lot of unappreciated drag in all the communities. I actually have, not to plug, but I have the longest running king show. It used to be in Queens, but since we've lost 2 spaces, I now have the longest running king show in New York City. So it's been, thank you. It's been almost 3 years now, and even with 2 Glam Awards, or nominations under my nominations under my belt. It's still, at the end of the day, I have to do extra and additional work just to be considered as, someone who's just as bookable, which is absurd to me. Not to mention just
Call them out.
you think it goes away, but no, just the sexism that you deal with, the fact that it's all the queens, all the girls, it's always we're just forgotten about, and it's not always done in a disrespectful way, so it's not always bring the girls back, and then there's a king or two, because that's unintentional, that's just because we have a certain exposure, we're used to it usually being all queens, so we say girlies, queens, etc. But it's also just the erasure of king art and drag, because I performed in a lovely competition that I enjoyed so
Name
much.
the competition.
No.
Oh, I'm messy. I'm
I was very
where was this? What bar?
I was very, very proud. My final number, I basically was you know what, it's time for kings to come. This is what I've done in the king community. This is what we need to do for kings. We need to create safe spaces for kings. We need to book kings. We need to do, and I'm doing my whole spiel, feeling really confident and great about it. And one of my feedback was, you just focus too much on kings. We've heard it enough. It's a lot. It's overdone.
Who the fuck said that?
A real girl. We're gonna let that lie.
No.
No, we're not doing that.
Is it the one at the bar that's now closed?
It's the one that we don't like
Is it
together.
the bar?
It's this one. You're this one, this that one.
The one that I don't like?
No, it's you're this height, they're that height.
The one that I don't
Yeah,
like?
we're on the same page. Anyways, keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. But it's just it's underappreciated art, and it's almost oh, well, we have to give a spot to the drag kings because the lesbians have got to watch something. And it's crazy to think about how much sexism is still in the queer community and how much that's an ongoing issue. Just with and I'm just one drag king, and I'm white. I have a lot of privilege, and while I am trans, I do. Yes, Mama, I do. Yeah, I'll stop taking the time, but it's infuriating. Not all spaces are safe. Most of the transphobic things I've had have actually been via other trans people or in spaces. The most queer hate I've got has oftentimes been from other queer people. So just because it's a safe space for us doesn't mean it's safe for us, but always keep in mind, just because they're queer people doesn't mean they're good people. Just because we have things in common and we align with them, hey, I had that experience too, I felt that way too, we have shared experience, doesn't mean that people, doesn't mean that they're good people, and it's hard to remember that sometimes, showing up in a space where, this is for me, this should be, but yeah, you gotta look out for people. Look out for people.
Is this queen also black? It's Lestrange or London, isn't it?
It's a no.
That's the only black thing I don't like. That's the only rude girl I don't like.
Clearly you forgot our conversation.
Tina Turner?
Moving on.
So we have 15 minutes.
Thank you, 15. We're gonna talk about this afterwards, but I think it's Lux. It has to be Lux. It's the only rude girl I don't like. Jan?
I've never met her.
It's Jan.
Jan's not.
Jan's a brew girl.
Jan's white.
It's RuPaul.
All right.
She says Sasha.
That was great. Fun. Jesus Christ, that was great.
The law hasn't changed to protect the innocent.
I don't even know where I'm going. Can we have 15 minutes left. Can I open up the floor to our lovely audience who has been here watching? We've hit 3 actually. I've actually been really good. I have notes right here, and I've been flipping them over as we've been answering. Who is this real girl? I am dead set.
We're not doing this right now.
If somebody from the audience asks this question, they're gonna have to answer. Like, it's an audience-related question.
Do we have any audience questions?
Thank you.
Oh, we can get in the aisles in the church. I went to church.
You went to church? You went to Black church?
There are pews in every church. I think.
So you've never
Are
been
there?
I don't know. Have you been to Black church?
No.
It shows.
Where?
You tell me.
I'm asking.
There's an audience question, Owen.
Oh, fuck yeah. Where?
There's not. I just want to see if you.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. I don't think I can get this right.
And keep going. And that's it.
Okay, we're gonna do this Ask Wendy style. Yeah.
Ask what?
I'm not Wendy though.
Thank you, because you know you're white.
What's your question?
Yes, so,
Oh, what's your name?
Amber, I'm
Hi.
gonna ignore the mic, cause
Yeah.
Oh.
I want my jet.
Hi, Amber. Everyone say hi, Amber.
I love your ability to project, Amber.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
My, question relates to, actually shameless plug, my presentation, which is right after this, but, that's a conversation about anti-LGBTQ, legislation.
Oh my God, that was my next one.
Exactly, as drag performers, it's, it need not be said how often you guys are targeted, especially recently by Republican legislators across the United States. How do you grapple with that in your performance? How do you grapple with that in your day-to-day lives outside and all at the stage? And how do you embrace community in those safe and not so safe spaces?
Desecrate the image of Republican lawmakers.
That's an easy one. I mean, that's an easy one for me. Like, I'm a theater girl through and through. So, thank you for blowing your nose while I said that. That's so.
Not the call out.
Yeah, so while I'm talking. No, kidding. Totally, I'm an asshole. So, I mean, the legislation has never been on my side from the get-go, and also since theater is racist and transphobic and homophobic and all the things, my drag has always been political. So it's purposely a statement to, A, do things better, make change, and also, like, fuck everyone. Like, you said it best. Like, honestly, walk into spaces authentically, and yes, not always. Sometimes the goal, like, if, God forbid, you ever get to see me do, like, the color purple, like, that's the only time when I'm at, like, that's a real number. Like, that's one that's coming with tears, or that's one that you're going to see a real Broadway night closing performance, because there's real pain there. Like, there's something about being a Black performer working in nightlife in New York City where you have to work 40 times as hard as my other performers here. Like, don't get me wrong, I love each and every one of you. But like, let's be fucking honest. It's not on my side. And because I want to work in Manhattan, and because I want to work in Midtown, the spaces that I want to work in have been dominated by cis, white, queer men. And I'm very clear, cis, white, queer men. These are not non-binary performers, these are not AFAB performers, these are cis, white, queer men who do a very specific type of drag, and that's the only type of drag that is allowed in that space. God forbid a Black performer who does the same exact thing, God comes in with better drag, a bigger budget, wants to do the same exact thing, God even a little better with a bigger budget, bars say fuck no. because they are afraid that the people that I'm going to bring in look exactly like you. And they are afraid, and I've had this conversation, they're afraid of what that's going to do to their business. And that's the part that I never understood, because no offense, Teddy, you're fucking great.
Do you wanna name the
people
bars, drug
Oh.
bars that closed because of this
The
issue? They were
123.
called out for? There's actually 3 bars that were closed
Yeah.
because
Go
of
ahead.
this
Oh my
issue.
gosh, yes.
Go ahead.
I'll start us off with Q.
Yeah,
Yes.
piss.
Hmm?
I said rest in piss to the Q.
Rest in peace, I did not like the Q.
With Motel 23,
I feel like this has
That was
gotten like
bad.
very
that was bad.
negative about the community, but you have to find
It's
your
true,
people.
but it's
not-
true. I'm sorry, like,
Why
those
do
people
people
were not being
authentic.
You have to find your people. Like, you have to find your people. Like,
I
your
always
space is
did.
important, but at the end of the day, you and your people can create that space. You can create a space separate in a bar. You can have a
Yeah.
bar and a little corner in your space with your people, and
You could
Not
create your
yours.
space on a farm if you wanted to.
with
Big
flowers.
garden.
My first drag show was at a biker bar. Seriously, in my hometown.
I've been to a drag show on a cattle farm,
got
and it was one of my
questions.
favorites, yes.
Black woman.
Well, it's not really a question, more like a statement. But like, I hear you guys talking a lot about like the community not being as safe, and like especially as like a non-binary person of color, I feel that a lot. A lot of the times when something is said, "Oh, we're for everyone," it's not actually for everyone. And the moment you step in, or the moment you don't look like everyone else, like, you're the problem. And I just, like, resonated with a lot what you said as well, because, like, so many times have I heard that, like, people come at me for my identity, like, oh, you're not actually trans, you're just non-binary, that's another thing. Just because, like, I don't go through this same exact, like, experience,
But
I don't.
medical transition has
Yeah.
nothing to
Yeah.
do with being trans. Doing any sort of medical has nothing to do with being trans. You don't have to look any type of way to be trans. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to validate yourself. That's like the most infuriating thing. I'm sorry. I get up.
Literally.
I think as queer people, a lot of us have like some trauma from feeling othered and feeling othered by society. And one like real way that people cope with that is by othering more so that they can feel that they're in the in crowd for once. And yeah, I think that's a real thing that goes on, and it's not good. And I just try to imagine ways that we can better support each other. But
Well,
it's
when
hard.
we have people like you doing the work, who fight to make spaces as safe as possible. So we come back and we lean on you when times are tough, and you give advice that has stuck with me for years. The fuck? Like, I can't, and Robert, fuck, you're doing the fucking work. The hell? Like, the fact that you have fought so hard to keep everyone as safe as possible, when anytime anything goes wrong, you're the first person to jump in. Let me tell you guys, you're doing the work, and it's seen and it's appreciated. So, it's we have to for like one more question, and then I gotta get the fuck out of here. Also, because I need to piss like a goddamn racehorse. So, like, thank you for telling me, thank you for snapping, because I gotta pee. Yes, you in this lovely outfit, because I gotta pee.
Hi, my name is Bryn.
Sup, Bryn?
I have like problems
Me
where
too.
I was like, I don't know if I can do drag because I look like this and I'm not cool enough.
You're fucking kidding.
There's a lot of ugly people that do drag.
Lux Noir London is one of them, and I will say that until the day I die.
You're very beautiful.
Not
Hey,
even
Reddit.
like,
Hey,
why are we
Reddit.
touching her? Why are we touching her? It's not even her.
So mine's like less of like a question and more of like, well, I guess it's a question of like, how do I actually show up and like not be terrified?
Do it. And then don't do it. Don't do drag. That's my number thing. Just don't do it, because drag is expensive as fuck. But for the release
You
for
don't
the
have to
creative outlet.
have money to do drag. You don't have to have
Sorry.
any money to do drag.
T.
No money. True.
I mean, what you're wearing right
I
now.
think you should express
Actually, I do
yourself.
like
This is
How you
literally
would
so
express
sick
yourself.
and
Put on a hip pad.
Like, don't.
I will say, put on a hip pad, please.
Can I get a stand up and 360 in this outfit?
Yes, please.
For the camera.
Yes.
Actually, I lied. You can get away without a hip pad. Just pop on a corset and you're all set.
Is that amazing?
I want a small, teeny, weeny waist. And a big wig. You heard what I said?
That's what that is.
I want a teeny, weeny waist. Waist. Fags of Hampshire County. Thank you so much. Alright. Again, I am from whatever, shut up. I do a very specific type of drag. All I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna wrap this up. Community is bullshit. Drag is great. And us is like, hi, thank you, 5?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, so it's, what? Are you sure it's 5?
It's 2:13 right now.
I thought it was, I thought we were running at 2:15.
Yeah, I'm giving you 5.
Extra minute.
Oh.
This makes me think of that time I was growing up.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Hampshire, time doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I was like, wait, it's 2 minutes to get to 5. 7. Love. We can do math. Long story is just, yes, I got it. Thank you.
Closing statement?
My closing statement is, thank you so much for bringing us back here. Actually, bringing me back here. Thanks for letting me bring my New York
Sorry, I'll cross my leg.
coho.
I will.
My hot-ass co-star, Derrière. I'm so excited I finally got to work with the two of you. Lividity, and of course, again, the Hampshire College queen herself, apparently. They love you here. Like, I thought I was some hot shit, and then you walked in, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll gladly go fuck myself. It's fine. Awesome. Next time I'm coming in a goddamn ball gown and see the reaction. No, fine. I'm coming to the expensive drag next time. Fuck Fashion Nova. What?
Somebody's jealous.
That dress was free.
Oh, you don't need money to do drag. Just be silly. It's art.
Just be silly. Yeah.
Just be silly.
No.
You should see my $1 ball gown.
On that note,
Do you want to know how to make a safe space?
protect queer kids.
And listen to each other.
Listen to each other.
Like $1 dresses.
Buy $1 dresses. Oh, and if you ever need resources, queer resources, reach out to this one. I'm telling you. I think I emailed you a couple times too when I was younger. And like you gave me like some words of wisdom, which I do. It was on my Marcella Brook 8 email. Don't ask why. I know things. Don't shut up. Great advocate. Like they've been doing the work for years. You sent me a couple websites too about like understanding your identity and what it's like, living again authentically. I feel like again that's fucking I'm fucking bent on them. And if you're Hampshire related and you're looking for Hampshire related queer resources, God forbid fucking reach out to Robert. Like Robert is here. Robert knows somebody. If Robert doesn't know the answer, wait 24 hours and Robert will send you an email with somebody else that will have the answer to what you're looking for. And God forbid, we will be back sometimes, fucking now, probably in the fall. Because I'm calm down. I need to pee, and I would like to get the.
I just want to make one statement because this is new information for me, so I do want to just advertise it to this area. My position slightly changed, so this year and moving forward, I'm what's called a private resource on campus. So if you have any gender-based violence concerns, questions, anything along those lines, you can come to me and talk and figure out different resources or strategies without necessarily having to worry about mandated reporting through the Title IX process. We are trying, we are trying Title IX and just making sure that you're knowing all of your options, but you come talk to me, you're not going to be forced into a conversation that you don't want to have.
Alright, fuck. That's new. That's like new now. Fuck, Rob. Damn.
We also have one other director of prevention and education, so both Jenny and myself are private resources outside of the mandated reporting requirement.
When did this happen? I'm gonna get a UTI. But thank you so much. If y'all need to reach out to us, fucking DM us on Instagram, because I'm always on it. Or like find me on Grindr, one of the two. I need to go pee. I'm gonna go. Thanks guys, appreciate you. Substantive. Bye.